Hello and welcome to Just Africa, another edition of Just Africa, where we unpack stories shaping our continent. Today we spotlight a major shift, France's military withdrawal from Senegal, ending a decades-long of presence in the Francophone West Africa. But this isn't just about troops. It's about power, influence, and economics. With France stepping back, what are the economic implications for Senegal and the region? And is this an opportunity for greater autonomy, or will it create new vulnerabilities? Stay with us as we unpack the deeper impact behind the headlines. I am Olumide Shokoy. I also have beside me the perfect gentleman, the fair one, Onyepreye Kumale.
Hello, Olumide.
How are you doing?
It's good to be, I'm fine. It's good to be back again on Just Africa. And look at what we are talking about today. France's last, exit from Senegal, from the Gale military camp and one other military air base. It's a big one because if you look at it very critically, about 350 troops of the French military is being pulled out as we speak, and each troop in the military is between 30 to 60 soldiers. So we're looking at roughly 21,000 persons in the military that have been moved out.
Yes.
And France is not just leaving; it's actually reviewing the relationship. Both parties are reviewing the relationship. I call it the review of a relationship because France, at this moment, when you look at it, is moving from a post-colonial protector to one who is now working as a strategist and having some form of interaction and cooperation with another sovereign state. Before now, they were not at par.
Was it a teacher,
There was a superior
student?
teacher, student, there's a superior, but now they are both operating as both sovereign states who can interact and make requests for each party who are obliged to honor the request that each party makes. So it's now moving from a protector to one who shares intelligence and who also be available by virtue of the relationship, which is now a partnership, to give military training to Senegal. And that's something great because if you look at it very well, I think Senegal is the only country that actually negotiated their way into this sort of relationship, not a forced exit like the French experience with Burkina Faso, with Mali, with Niger,
not a coup or
and
military
Chad. No.
junta.
Yes, they actually negotiated. So I think it's good. That is why I'm not surprised that it's now a partnership that is resulting into military cooperation, national cooperation, sharing intelligence information, and also we are going to be teaching and training the Senegalese military because lifting off such heavy military presence from France is going to awaken some other things like extremism. It's going to rebirth extremism. Is going to want to give some form of power or leeway for will I call them criminals or terrorists to want to resume attacks in strategic areas in Senegal and including other contiguous states. So if they are doing that, Senegal, that is why I'm glad that it's a partnership. It's not a forceful eviction like the experience in other Francophone countries. So it's also going to lead to France to look at their relationship and their foreign policies with that has existed after colonialization and that has existed post-colonialization, and I will call this the new era where both parties come to the table to negotiate. And this thing, the reason why I can say both parties, because I see the relationship between France and Senegal to be more in a good balance than the experience in Burkina Faso.
I like how you kept on mentioning the word negotiate and negotiations, which is one of the things we would look at today. We would look at how Senegal negotiated with France. Whether it's a good negotiation, who gets to benefit more? Because let's look at it. Someone might benefit more than the other. We get to weigh that. And also the economic impact, because whether we like it or not, this will also affect Senegal and all their regions economically. So these are some of the things we would like to explore. But, you know, to grasp the full significance of France's military withdrawal from Senegal, we must revisit history when France colonized vast regions, including Senegal, Mali, Niger, and Cote d'Ivoire. Dakar, once the capital of French West Africa, became the hub of political and military control through a policy of assimilation and exploration. Now, France extracted resources and recruited African soldiers, yes, like the Trios Senegalese, to fight in its wars. Now, independence came in 1960, just like Nigeria. But France's influence endured through military pacts and economic arrangement, what became known as Francophone. Now, today, the model is unraveling from Mali to Burkina Faso and now Senegal. It's a wave of nationalism, frustration over failed counter-terrorism strategies, and assertive new leadership is reshaping Africa's foreign relations, I beg your pardon. Now, in 2024, France announced a full military exit from Senegal, shifting to training, intelligence sharing, and softer partnership. While this marks a symbolic end of post-colonial military era, it raises a deeper question. Can true partnership replace control? And what comes next after Africa reclaims its strategic autonomy? We'll go on a short break. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll unpack. It's Just Africa. Welcome back to Just Africa, where we unpack stories shaping our continent. Today we will discuss France's military withdrawal from Senegal. Our first guest today, is a multimedia journalist who focuses on human rights, community development, health, just to mention a few. He was the former head social media unit of Punch, and in 2023, he won the Gani Fawemi Human Rights Reporter of the Year at the Nigerian Media Merit Award. Mr. Fateh Hamid, you're welcome to Just Africa.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you very much for sparing time to join us today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so let's unpack. What does France withdrawal? That's my first question. What does France withdrawal from Senegal truly signify to you?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very good news for me, and I'm much more glad that the withdrawal was a mutual arrangement between both France and the Senegalese government, because we cannot continue to have, for me personally, I believe that it is more of a continued colonialism in my way. So it signifies sovereignty. It signifies an Africa that we all have been, clamoring for over time. It signifies that the Senegalese are now taking charge of their own security by themselves, because we cannot continue to have the foreigners ruling over us stylishly in a way, in tactics, and in several tactics, because the continued presence of the French military in the Senegalese in Senegal as a country, and on the Senegalese government, means that it still in a way influences certain decisions of the Senegalese government. But now with the full exit of France from Senegal, then we are having a country that is dependent solely on itself without the interference of their colonial masters.
All right, so if I may also ask, in your opinion, what do you think pushed or what moved Senegal to renegotiate, or if it's negotiate this time around, and why now?
Thank you very much. I believe that the unraveling that we've been having, in countries like Niger, in Mali, in Cote d'Ivoire, was one of the major reasons why Senegal also decided to make that move now. Because if we look at it, what we have, which is Franafrique, that we've had for a long while, with France still ensuring that their presence is still being, felt as countries where they, once ruled upon as colonial masters. These countries, of course, it is a different thing entirely because we had the military take over some of these countries, or let me say most of these countries that forcefully pushed out the reign of the French military from their respective countries. However, in the case of Senegal, what I believe President Faye, did was to see that, okay, this is the best time for me to do this thing. Why? Because I now have the hedge. Instead of doing it forcefully, let me instead renegotiate with these people, tell them that these are what we want. Instead of them continue being present here, let them live fully, but let us be able to exchange intelligence and let them operate with us as other countries operate with their colonial masters. Look at Nigeria, look at Ghana, how they are operating with their own colonial masters instead of having our presence there. So what Senegal did was the best time for them because if they do not do it now, they probably will not be able to do it again. But because we are having that same trend across different multiple African countries with French military being there, it is almost the best time for them to do so. Imagine if we had the British here in Nigeria still controlling certain activities for us under the guise of being or protecting security for us. It means that we are not even ripe enough for independence, for being a sovereign state at the first place. So what President Faye is a very laudable negotiation on my home part, and I believe that it is the best time for him, which I believe he also saw as necessary at this point in time for them to move forward as a country.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amid. Now, there is another part of the argument that the colonial masters or France or England, as the case may be, does not need to have a military presence in any of their former colonies before they can actually influence or direct, policy frameworks or to influence the policies of these countries, be it economic policy or military policy. The UK, we don't have a UK military, British military base in Nigeria. But you could see that before Muhammadu Buhari came to power, it was in the UK. Before Tinubu got to power too, and even our former leaders, before they got to power, they always go there. What exactly is it that they went looking for there? Now, for France, for Senegal that we just spoke about, now since France is leaving, since the French is taking their troops away, it is also another argument that they still have a very, very strong hold of the government to control the government because as it is, they do not have the wherewithal, military-wise, to stand on their own and to defend themselves against terrorism and extremism in that part of the country. So whether French troop is there or not, they still control it.
I completely disagree with that argument, because when you have a presence of a military presence in your country, there is a certain fear such presence instill in any government. Why? Because France is a world power. France is a big country that has once colonized this country that we're talking about, which is Senegal, right? So having a military presence poses an amount of fear, threat to the minds and lives of Senegalese at large, So leaving their territory gives this freedom of self-sustenance to the Senegalese as people and to Senegal as a country first. Now, coming back to interfering or still having a way of controlling government, it's across the world. It's across the world. However, in this case, it is to be strategic because now we now have it to be economic influence. We're having it to be financial influence. Why? Because almost all of these third world countries which are most African countries, they have to, negotiate and seek support majorly from these countries. Why? Because we do not have the wherewithal to make certain controls for ourselves, right? However, when these countries leave, it gives African countries the confidence to do things on their own. Because even the French, even the United States of America, that's now probably the biggest country in the world today, or the world power, the number one world power today, looking at Russia, the United States was colonized by the British government at the time too, if we're not forgetting that. So imagine if the British continue to have military presence in the United States of America. When did the United States want to build their own security sustenance by themselves? So it's a step in the right direction. It might not be immediate. The impact might not be what we would get at a time, but it is gradual. It is gradual. When Senegal withdraws, when they withdraw from Senegal completely right now, then it means that subsequently they are now going to start looking at localizing their own security themselves. It means that our locals, it means the Africans now begin to be in charge of most of the things that are happening in their country. That is the significant impact that is there. It means that we can now be futuristic. We can now look at it and say, okay, as Senegalese, for example, what do we want to achieve in the next 10 years security-wise, now that we've been able to negotiate the full exit of these people from our country? Then they know the next step to move forward, right? That is what America did. That is how major countries who have been previously colonized by colonial rulers did, to be able to have a sovereign state of their own. If they continue to have the presence of these countries in their locality, it doesn't signify an actual sovereign state. However, with their exit, it means that, of course, as I said earlier, it doesn't mean that they have that capacity, they have the wherewithal to be able to do all of these things right now, but it's a step in the right direction, looking at the future impact and looking at how they want to set up as a country. So when they do this for themselves, right, they are able to move forward. So it doesn't mean that this is going to be an instant impact for them, but it means that in the next couple of years, they are going to be a country who will be proud of the decision they've taken today. Most definitely, because similar African countries in the past have done it and they've never regretted it. Also, I need to state that the continued presence of colonial military, colonial country military in African countries, it's a show of weakness for many of these countries too on their part. Why? Because you say you've colonized us and you told us you've given us independence. Imagine, since 1960, that is over 60 years of continued presence in their country. Then what is the real sovereignty that they've given to them if they've given them independence since 1960, and as a country, they've still been unable to completely leave that territory? That means there is something they are getting from it. Why? Look, if you look at history and look at how the French government destroyed economic, destroyed resources by taking a lot of things away from the Senegalese people. You can look at what happened to them in Congo. Look at what Belgium did to us in Africa. So these are the things that we are saying. We cannot continue to have the presence of these people there. It means that they are saying that we are not capable enough to run our country by ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Amit. Let me interrupt here. Thank you very much for laying that precedent. Now, let me take it this way again. If the continuous presence of the French troops in some of these countries and in Senegal as we speak, it shows or betrays the fact that their sovereignty is incomplete. Let us equally paint the picture and to let our viewers know that what was the exact reason why the French military presence had to be stationed. Their troops had to be stationed in Senegal and other countries that were colonized by France. And it was as a result of terrorism and extremism, which also betrays the fact that the local security agencies and the militaries of these countries cannot even handle it on their own. it betrays a security lapse that they cannot handle on their own. And as a result of that, the French troops had to come in to restore peace. We could see that from 2009, 2010, insecurity, banditry, terrorism, and extremism are made an inroad to the West African region, and they have perpetuated themselves till 2015. It got to a different height in the country, and as we speak, they are still lurking there because the local security agencies have not been able to displace them. And this is the reason why the French troops are there, to make sure that there is sanity, there is peace in the atmosphere for the governments of this country to be able to prosecute their sovereign duties. Don't you think removing them in this way is going to reignite insecurity?
I do not think so, my learned colleague. I do not think so that exiting the Senegalese territory is going to invoke a continuous terrorism attack across that country. No, I completely disagree with that. In the first place, let us look at a country like Nigeria. Nigeria is currently tackling terrorism, banditry, herdsmen crisis, the independent people of Biafra. Nigeria is tackling all of this on different fronts as a country. And we are absolutely on top of these situations without the involvement of the British military. Now, it shows strength. It signifies absolute and complete sovereignty on the part of Nigeria. The Senegalese government, yes, was faced with a lot of, terrorism and extremism over the past years. And the French troops came in to give them stability. That's fine. It's fine. You can do that. But are you telling me that most of the youth, Senegalese youth, are not capable enough to be trained to replicate these same things that the troops of these countries are executing for them? No, that's not the case. These people can absolutely be trained to tackle this level of insecurity that we've had across board over time. Do you understand me? So now, their presence or their exit does not directly impact the effect of continued terrorism or extremism in those countries. Why? Because when they were present there, it doesn't mean that terrorism stopped in these countries, mind you. It doesn't mean that there was still continued terrorism across this country, these countries that we've spoken about. In fact, it even led to many coups that we had in some of these countries in the last couple of years because the citizens were tired of extremism and terrorism across these countries, which forced the military of these countries to decide to take power from the democratically elected government. So having their presence in these countries does not significantly determine if terrorism is going to come to a halt or terrorism is going to be, to be fighting like a wildfire in these countries. No, I do not agree with that. However, when we have terrorism plaguing a country, one of the best methods of tackling terrorism is going local. Why? Because it is the locals that are involved in terrorism and extremism. So you have to be able to use the local strength to tackle the local threats. That is the way it should be. You cannot have military and foreign military coming to help you resolve local crises. No, it doesn't work. If we continue to do that, then it doesn't show strength. It doesn't show absolute sovereignty for African countries. Have to have Africans deciding that it is time for us to tackle our own problems by ourselves without the influence or without external support. Yes, we can request for them to give us tactical trainings, for them to share absolute good intelligence for us to be able to conquer our enemies, right? However, their presence does not have a significant or direct impact on the effect of terrorism or eradication of terrorism in these countries. That's my stance.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Fateh Ahmed. So let's ask the fundamental question now. How prepared is Senegal's military to fill the vacuum left by France's final departure?
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe that the Senegalese military at this time is not completely capable of giving the country the required the required protection, the required security that they do so want. However, with the complete exit of France, it opens the Senegal as a country to global negotiation and global partnerships. They are able to seek the support of countries like Russia, the United States, even countries like Nigeria for support. But when we had France military presence, they were limited. Now, they are no longer limited. Yes, they require capacity, absolute capacity, and broader intelligence to be able to tackle the problems that they have at the moment, right? However, with the exit of the French military, they are able to, make fresh global partners across the world to be able to tackle their local crisis. They're able to garner intelligence, great intelligence that they can use to resolve fully the problems that they face over time, right? So this is the most significant work of the Senegalese military at the moment to, to look for partnership across the world, not just the French military, across the world. Look at the Russia, look at the United States, look at the UK, Britain. I'm so sorry about that. Look at Britain, look at Russia, look at Chinese government. Reach out to them for broader partnership to be able to fully solve and resolve their local crisis. They can no longer be limited now that France has completely exited their country. What we have now is a country that is ready to stretch its hands to global partners to be able to help them move forward and to stabilize their military strength in the country. Once this is done, we are able to move forward as an African country who is ready to be sovereign and absolutely stand on its own.
All right, thank you very much. Now, a country's military capacity to defend itself from both internal and external aggression also strengthens its sovereignty. I think that's where my colleague was concerned, about extremists and some of these people who actually see these loopholes and might want to take advantage of it quickly now that there's a vacuum that might be left open. How do you think Senegal would quickly be able to solve this?
Thank you very much. Again, as I lastly said, now that the French military has, completely left their territory, it opens them up to global partnership. If we have a country that is, if we have some people that are looking at that vacuum and try to exploit the Senegalese people of the immediate vacuum that the French military leaving their country has created, then they probably will be putting themselves in bigger waters and bigger troubles. Why? Because now the Senegalese government can stretch their hands and reach out to bigger countries that can support them, equip them to be able to fight their own wars by themselves. That is how they can immediately tackle the problem that we have. Look at what we have in countries that have taken these steps as well. Look at Nigeria, for example. Look at Mali, for example. We have global partners like Russia coming in and strengthening them over there. So that's what we are saying. We are saying that these countries now have the capacity, now has the ability to be able to reach out to global partners to further strengthen them. So when they do this, it gives them the opportunity to tackle whatever vacuum the French military exiting their country might have created. Do you understand? So they can now look at those opportunities that are abound to them. For me, I do not see problems. Yes, this vacuum is existential, right? However, if we have anybody, any organization that is looking at that vacuum to exploit it, then it potentially could put themselves in trouble as well because of the opportunities that are abound for the Senegalese government and its people.
Okay, thank you very much, Fatih Ami. Now, whilst you were responding to my colleague's question, you made references to some of the countries where you feel that Senegal can turn attention to, since they are turning attention away from France, they can look up to the United States of America for any of such assistance that they may require. You mentioned Russia, you mentioned the United Kingdom, that's Britain. But don't you think if this is the possible direction that we will be suggesting to Senegal to take, don't you think they'll be passing the baton, they'll be taking the baton from one hand of Europe, one of the countries in Europe, and giving it to similar members who equally, there's been this suspicion that they might just come to replace France and continue with the things that France has been accused of doing to their former colonies. As we speak, because of the fallout of of Burkina Faso, and now we have military presence, the fallout in Mali, the fallout in the Niger Republic. We are equally told that China is making its presence known there. We are equally told that Russia, through its security contractor, Wagner Security Group, is also there. Do you think they're not going to continue the subjugation? Excuse me.
All right. I'd like to pose a question to you now. How has Senegal, how has it balanced its historical ties with France against growing calls for sovereignty and self-determination?
Thank you very much. Let me start from where Kumali stopped earlier. Now, it's not a problem of person passing from French or France or French government to the English government or to the American government or to the Chinese government. That's not the case here. They are not asking the British military to come and establish another territory on their own, another military base rather on their territory, in their territory rather, or they are rather neither are they asking the American military, the U.S. Navy to come and establish another base in their country. That's not the case. That's not how it works with making policies across the world. What happens is having representatives, democratically elected governments, sitting at the table and saying, these are what we seek from you. It is standard practice across countries. Even Nigeria does it. I could remember during the tenure of former President Goodluck Jonathan, where we had intelligence on Boko Haram. That was even at the peak period for Boko Haram in Nigeria, where we had good intelligence from the United States that headed certain works against the damages being done to Nigeria by Boko Haram at the time when it was at their peak. So now it is not that how it works. You have countries who are open to you. You have countries who are able to give you broader resources than what you were previously accustomed to. That is what we now have in the case of Senegal as a country. So it doesn't limit them in any way. And it doesn't mean they are handing over their suffering or they are handing over themselves to another colonial rule. No, that's not the case. It is standard practice of sovereign countries. Even countries who we believe are, the world powers still does deals between themselves. You can see Chinese government still striking military and economical deals with the United States of America. So it's a standard practice across the world. Countries have to rely on each other for sustenance. It doesn't mean that we are putting ourselves in their care for them to do anything to us. No, that's not the case. It means that we are strengthening our ties and broadening our opportunities across this country to be able to properly govern our people, to give basic security and protect the lives and properties of the people of Senegal. That is what now is open to the people of Senegal. That is what they are opportune to do now for themselves.
All right, thank you very much. Now, still on this question, before we go, in a case whereby Senegal approaches world powers like Russia, China, or even Turkey, will this have any implication, or what implication will they have on their existing relationship with France?
Thank you. It doesn't affect their relationship with France in any way. It's not going to affect each other. France as a country could decide whatever they intend to do by themselves. Again, they have been an impostor in this people's country for years. They've overstayed their presence. So they can decide to do whatever they intend to do if they are being threatened or they feel grossly undone by the Senegal government reaching out to other countries to strengthen their own security of their people, right? However, what is certain is that Senegal is now a sovereign state that can decide to do whatever they want to do by themselves as a country. That is the most important advantage and the most significant resolution of this whole scenario. It means that Senegal as a country now can reach out to even world powers that are bigger than France itself. So what does France want to do? It doesn't stop anything from the economic side. And mind you, France will continue to need the help of these people because that is why they have continued to stay there for many years. Look at what's happening with Congo. Over time, they continue to stay there. You know, before we now add Congo restructuring and all of those things. Yes, it happens, but it means that they are now moving towards complete national security and national sovereignty as a country by themselves. It doesn't affect them in any way. It means that they are only expanding the scope of their opportunities as a country, and they are stretching their hands to reach more countries for broader and bigger economic opportunities and security opportunities for their people.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Fateh Hamid. So glad you joined us. You have been impactful. You have been brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. All right, yes, we are still discussing France's exit from Senegal. What does this mean for Senegal and the region and the economic implications? It's still Just Africa. We'll go on a short break, and when we can come back, we'll continue with the program. Stay tuned.
Senegal stands tall as one of West Africa's most stable and forward-looking nations, a country where tradition and modernity blend with remarkable harmony. With its strategic location on the Atlantic coast, Senegal has long served as a gateway for commerce, diplomacy, and cultural exchange across the continent. From the historic island of Gorée, an enduring symbol of the transatlantic slave trade, to the vibrant streets of Dakar, pulsing with art, music, and entrepreneurship, Senegal's story is one of resilience, evolution, and pride. At the heart of Senegal's progress lies its democratic maturity. Often hailed as a beacon of stability in the region, Senegal has consistently demonstrated peaceful transfers of power and a robust civil society. This political foundation has allowed the country to focus on critical areas of development, including education, health, infrastructure, and innovation. The government's plan, Senegal Emergent PSE, launched in 2014, outlines an ambitious path towards sustainable economic growth, infrastructural development, and social advancement, positioning the nation as a rising force in West Africa. Senegal's economic landscape is diverse and expanding, from agriculture and fishing to digital services and energy. The country continues to attract foreign investment and regional partnerships. The new city of Diamaniadio, a flagship project under the PSC, is transforming into a hub for technology, education, and governance, reducing the strain on Dakar and symbolizing a vision of decentralized, inclusive development. Culturally, Senegal is a powerhouse. The influence of Sufi Islam, particularly the Mahrite Brotherhood, has shaped not only spiritual life, but also economic cooperation and communal cohesion. The nation's music, literature, and visual arts are internationally celebrated, with artists like Youssou N'Dour and filmmakers like Ousmane Sembene leaving indelible marks on global culture. This rich cultural identity reinforces a sense of unity and purpose, even amidst economic or political challenges. Socially, Senegal continues to prioritize youth empowerment and gender inclusion, with over 60% of the population under the age of 25. Investments in education, vocational training, and entrepreneurship are vital. Women's roles in politics, business, and civil society are increasingly visible and impactful, further strengthening national development. Senegal also leads in diplomacy and regional integration. It is a founding member of ECOWAS and plays an active role in African Union affairs and peacekeeping missions. This outward-looking approach reinforces Senegal's role as a stabilizing force and a champion of Pan-African ideals. With its deep historical roots, visionary leadership, and unwavering commitment to progress, Senegal continues to inspire a model of African development, grounded in cultural pride, democratic values, and inclusive growth. I am Moyosore Adibi for SouqNews TV.
On the 19th of August 2025, Paris will come alive with the prestigious People's Choice Governors Awards taking place at the Gauche Hotel, Paris. The prestigious People's Choice Governors Awards is designed to celebrate governors who have contributed immensely to their states in different countries across the world. If you are a governor who's gone above and beyond to deliver transformative projects in your state and country, then this award is for you. To partake of the Governor's Excellence Awards this year taking place in Paris, all you have to do is send an email to SouqNexus.com with the words, "I accept," and we will get right back to you. You can also send a WhatsApp message to the WhatsApp number scrolling on your screen right now. You don't want to miss Paris for anything, and we are looking forward to celebrating you and your achievements this year. So contact Souq Nexus to make that happen. Over the past 10 years, we've seen that the impact of many lawmakers have been underrated. If you are playing a pivotal role in enacting laws and shaping policies for your community, society, or nation, then this is for you. The People's Choice Legislative Excellence Award celebrates the individual achievement of lawmakers who have worked tirelessly to enhance the lives of their constituents and contribute positively to their entire well-being. Now, if you're wondering where this will be taking place, it will be taking place at Radisson Blu Dubai Creek on the 25th of September 2025. To take part in this award, all you have to do is send an email to SouqNexus.com or send a message to the WhatsApp number scrolling on your screen. We want to see you at Radisson Blu Dubai Creek. Wouldn't you rather be there?
At the Africa Development Studies Center, ADSC, we are committed to driving sustainable growth and development across Africa through innovative training and research. Our mission, empowering leaders policymakers, and professionals with the tools they need to create lasting change. With customized training, dynamic research programs, and study exchanges on leadership, management, and other critical development topics, ADSC offers a platform for exchanging cutting-edge ideas and global best practices. We provide comprehensive services in research and consultancy, capacity building and training, education programs, publishing and knowledge sharing. Our esteemed faculty, composed of seasoned experts and researchers, ensures a learning experience that is insightful and practical. We specialize in policy development, implementation strategies, monitoring, and evaluation. At ADSC, learning is engaging and enjoyable. Our unique methodology includes talks, interactive exercises, games, video screenings, and lively seminar discussions, all in a comfortable and friendly environment. Ready to make an impact? For more information, email us at info@adstudycenter.com or call +234 912 439 2362. Visit us today at www.adstudycenter.com to explore our programs and upcoming events. Africa Development Studies Center, rethinking development for Africa.
Welcome back to Just Africa. We're still discussing France's exit from Senegal. We'll be looking at the economic implications and a whole lot more. What does this mean for African regions? What does it even mean? How can ECOWAS step in? And for other nations, what is this a lesson for them? Priya, what do you think?
Yes, so earlier on I was talking about the way and manner these military bases, most especially from France, left some other countries. Niger Republic is there, Chad is there, France military has left there. Niger Republic, Chad, Burkina Faso.
Yes.
Is gone. Now, by the way, forcefully, really, like, please go, and it was as a result of a coup, and there's this. But for Senegal, it was a negotiation. So I'm beginning to think, okay, now we have many multinational companies. We have Total Energies domiciled in Senegal. We have the Bank of Africa in Senegal. We have British Petroleum also in Senegal. We have Kauri. We have Dangote Cement. It is a Nigerian multinational company in Senegal. All these companies are heavily capitalized. They have heavy market capitalization, and through these companies, they serve as conduit to drive in foreign direct investment into Senegal, through which, massive job provision for the populace, for the young men, infrastructure development. They equally import technologies from the West and from other parts of the world and bring it down to Senegal. And this country's presence in Senegal and some of these contiguous states are being protected by the military presence of France. Yes. So that means the presence of the French military force or other military force help to protect and keep these multinationals safe. The expatriates or the expats, foreign persons that have been employed to work in these organizations to continue to perpetuate the presence of these multinationals in Senegal are being protected from terrorism, from extremism, from being kidnapped by bandits, by extremists. Now that they are leaving, it's not only going to deny them the military presence of these people, but it also have an economic undertone. What if these countries no longer feel safe in Senegal?
Investors' confidence.
Investors' confidence begins to decline. maybe security, maybe the extremists, started taking advantage of the gap, of the space that the absence of the French military is provided. And so they started attacking facilities, infrastructure, installations, and make the life of business people who are providing massive employment for the populace there begin to feel unsafe. What are they going to do? They will begin to leave or to consider leaving.
Do you think ECOWAS can step in here?
To do what? What have they been doing before? That is why, okay, fine, ECOWAS. Remember when there was the military coup?
Yes.
And Nigeria, having the chairman and the position of leadership with regards to ECOWAS wanted to come in. And look at, even the northern Nigeria was prevailing on the president not to take that decision because the Nigerian military and other ECOWAS military forces are set, strategically positioned to launch in. Till today, the Ibrahim Traore still looks at Nigeria because at Nigeria and the president's position and that issue as that's something that has made the relationship gone sour or something that has put them at bay. It was one of the reasons they left ECOWAS. That means leaving will mean that you have nothing.
Let's not also forget
us.
that emissaries were sent to Niger Republic.
Yes.
For that time.
Yes, the emissaries were sent, but they will not budge. Of course, you don't expect them to think in that rational fashion because this is a military government. They think military. They don't think civil. So we have to equally look at it at that. So if this business or these businesses that exist in that part of town, if they're not protected, if the investors are not secured, how are we going to continue this business process and commercial activities that should be taking place, so that we don't get to the point where the multinationals needed to start leaving or consider exiting that.
I'm also looking at intra-African trade and talking about the AFCTA. What benefits Senegal stands to gain from this?
Okay. Well, I think that will be. Those are some of the massive questions I want to ask our guest, and since he's currently available, maybe we should bring him in and throw the question to him.
All right, so we'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring in our guest. It's Just Africa. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So, like I said earlier on, let's take a look at the economic implications of France's military exit from Senegal and Francophone West Africa. Now, our second guest today is Mr. Adetunji Banwo. He is an author, management consultant, public affairs analyst, founder, chief executive officer, Banwo Consulting Limited and ProSharp Limited, UK. So glad to have you. Can you unmute your mic, please, Mr. Banwo?
Yeah, is it better now?
Yes, better now.
Thank you for having me, Olumide. Good to be here again.
Good to see you again. So, France withdrawal from its final military base and Senegal marks a shift, in its regional posture, focusing now on training and intelligence beyond the geopolitical symbolism. Now, the exit raises important economic question, which is how will this affect foreign direct investment, local defense industries, regional security contracts, and infrastructure spending tied to military presence?
All right, great question, Olumide. It's what you call a necessary evil, right? It's going to have an impact. It's going to have, will I say serious impact? Initial, turbulence, but if the government of Senegal can stay the course and follow through on their long-term visions and their reasons for ejecting their former colonial masters, then there should be light at the end of the tunnel. But if they are not willing to endure the initial turbulence and the teething problems, then it's likely that they would slide either back into the arms of the former colonialists, or they probably would attract another, colonial master, because we can see the likes of China and Russia and their, inroad into African countries. So there is no free meal in Freetown. You see what I'm talking about? So you've got to find out what is also the agenda, So, but so is this, are they striving for independence, true independence, or are they finding a case of, lesser of the evils? I don't want this particular evil anymore. I want, I would rather make friends with, someone else, which of course, has also got their own, luggage of, evil dangling over them. You see what I'm talking about? I mean, so if they're trying to romance Russia, or is the other way around, or they're romancing themselves, think about all the human rights abuses and all the shenanigans that has been Vladimir Putin, lately, and encroaching into more territories in Ukraine, and so this is someone that is also power drunk, and like they say, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. So, like you said, there will be initial turbulence, but once you have a long-term goal, just follow through. So you won't, you won't be penny wise and pound foolish. They should be, as a country, as a nation, agree that yes, this is, if we got to take this decision and we've taken it now to eject France, but then do we really have a plan? So it's not like a case where like politicians will say sometimes, let's just grab power, and then when we get it, we'll not think of what next to do. No. So now you've ejected them, but do you have a long-term plan? So what they should be really doing is, I hope, this would help galvanize African unity, really, African unity, that kind of a thing. So this should be a wake-up call to Africans to say, yes, we are waking up from our slumber, and if finally we are realizing that, we are no longer babies that should be spoon-fed. We have gained independence, but it turns out there is still neo-colonialism. Like, we still have these former colonialists still, having this faint chain still tied around our necks. So I think, it's a wake-up call, and, African, ECOWAS, and, should eventually, wake up, and, this should embolden ECOWAS, and this should be an opportunity. This should be an opportunity, really. Like Winston Churchill would say, in times of, disaster, don't let a good disaster go to waste. So this looks like a turbulent time for them. I mean, there will be, they will have it will have economic impact, social impact, and just the impact, even security implications, because now they are exposed, because they were getting some form of protection. And talking about protection, I mean, isn't that the whole idea back in the days where you had protectorates? We had British protectorate, we had, so it was more like a case of, aftermath of the Berlin Conference, where it was not like a case of, what, these guys just plundered Africa, divided the spoils, and then, well, I will protect my own territory. So don't come to my own. These are the countries I'm in charge of. So France was in charge of about 21 countries. The British were in charge of about 24 countries. So I will protect these ones. They are my own. Don't come there. So imagine a thief guarding a property to say that is not even theirs, but say, I will protect these ones. So, but now they are no longer there. So now your ship is exposed. So what happens? So it means that, if they are not careful, so they've got to really put up that front to say we are not vulnerable. So, well, it's not a bad thing to also align with, world powers, because that's the world order, really. Your friend's friend is your friend. Your friend's enemy is your enemy, is your enemy, and your enemy's enemy is your friend. That's the calculation, really. So if you're dissociating from France, so who are you associating with? You've got to make friends with, the big guns, really. There's got to be someone you're associated with, such that it can deter even France from coming, for a recoil. You see what I'm talking about? To say, we'll go through the back door, we'll try and upturn, we'll cause insurgency, we'll try and destabilize the government, and we'll still find our way back. But if they can put up a good front with, associating with maybe BRICS, for example, is not a bad idea, because you're either a friend of the West or you're an enemy of the West. So if you're a friend of the West, You see what I'm talking about? Then you know what I'm talking. So you've got to be friends with someone, really. So choose your friends wisely. That's what I'm going to tell Senegal right now. Just choose your friends wisely, really. And you've got to be known to stand for something. Who do you associate with? You can't. Nature abhors vacuum. Really, that's the world order. So they've got to right now. Yeah, just associate themselves with any of the world powers really. But if they're associating with France, then I see them. I don't think it's they probably want to go the route of was it Burkina Faso? Yeah, the Burkinabe young chap, associating with was it Russia? So, but then they say if you're going to dine with the devil, just make sure you've got a long spoon. That's all I'm gonna say to Senegal right now. But I think is a right move in the right order. Yes, that's true independence. Gain independence, dissociating from every reminder of the dark ages of of colonialism and and all those era where Africa was enslaved. We were practically under siege by the European powers. So yes, it's a right move in the right order.
Choose your friends wisely. So in a case, and you also said it, if they decide to pick Russia as their friend, well, you know the rest of the story. But wouldn't that make them also an enemy of U.S.? Or would that open, what economic implications would that have on Senegal and even France?
All right, so the whole dynamics, it's a very very interesting one. The whole dynamics, yeah, clearly, if that's what they are going to do, then it's a bold statement. They've got to be able to make a bold statement. For me, really, I don't think we should really be concerned or interested in always clinging to the apron of a world power per se. Africa has to rise. This is a moment where I feel Africa can unite and rise. So, as much as I'm saying for security implications, because you can't rule out the what do you call it the extent to which these countries would actually go to actually remain where they are getting their cookie jar. That's what I'm talking about. Because why did these countries even come to Africa in the first place? It's because of the cookie jar, our resources. So for security implications, you've got to align with the world power. But I feel beyond that, Africa has to rise to the point where we can truly tell any of the European powers or any of the world powers to say, just stay put. Like, don't just stay clear. We can do without you. You see what I'm talking about? We can do without you. Back in the day, we used to have ECOMOG. Would you believe that? ECOMOG was the equivalent of your current NATO. The way you have NATO, you have ECOMOG. And I remember a lot of peacekeeping, peacekeeping effort by ECOMOG. Strong. And Nigeria was a major, contributory factor to ECOMOG. We had the lion's share. That's why we're called the big brother of Africa. So if we can have that kind of a strong force, such that it's going to be esprit de corps, one for all for one, such that, beyond the world powers, we can start looking at a case where African countries can become nuclear powers, like in the case of India. India too is a former, British colony, but look at them today. Look at India today, sending people to space, successful space missions. They are a nuclear power. Which African country right now can we boast of being a nuclear power? I think the closest right now they are, in talks is Burkina Faso is considering it. I think South Africa, if I'm not, if I get my fact right, is probably also getting close, or if they're not already there. That's what we're talking about. That's a deterrent. Once you know that you have some of these, countries in Africa, of the 50 plus countries in Africa that are also nuclear powers, and these guys are united in one force. You touch one, you touch all. I tell you, these guys will stay clear. So that should be the long-term goal. It's not just, on the interim, you need to be friends with a world power, because, like I said, your friend's friend is your friend, your friend's enemy is your enemy, your enemy's enemy is your friend. So you've got to choose your friends wisely. You've got to associate with someone so that they can defend you in times of trouble. And right now, do they have those, do they have that kind of, front to defend themselves if a France finds a way to, to attack them back, or to find a way to cause insurgency? Because that's usually the trick. They look for a small insurgency group, empower them, and use them to cause chaos across the entire country, upturn them, and then plant their own crony in government, that's the way they find their way back. But if you can unite, or right now, if you can, partner or associate themselves with any of the world powers as a short-term measure, that'll be good. But in the long term, we need to have some form of NATO, which is like ECOMOG. We need to strengthen ourselves. We need to let the world know that Africa is self-sustaining. We can survive without you guys. We have the human resources, we have the natural resources, we have the finest weather, we have a good soil. Like, just think, so Africa has to come to that. We have to make that bold statement. Enough is enough of depending on outsiders, depending on Europeans, depending on the West for our survival. We've got to let them know we can do without you. In terms of everything, food security, even talking about, military, and in terms of, that military might and all that, we've got to be able to make those bold statements. We've got all that it takes. We just need to unite. I'll be thinking about those things, that probably initiatives that someone like Gaddafi had then, which is a one currency. Think. I mean, every time I travel around Europe and I'm able to spend euros and cents, I'm like, why can't we have a case in Africa where there is a currency that you can spend, irrespective of which country you're coming from? I mean, it's those are the kind of conversations we should be having right now. They should be having those conferences and conversations around how do we strengthen the bond between African countries? How do we look within and say, what can we do to sustain ourselves if these Western powers decide to starve us? For example, starve us of military might. Think about this. And don't forget that if France had, operated in Senegal for this long, they also know their weaknesses. They've got all the intelligence. So the same person that knows your strength also knows your weaknesses, because they were so close to you, they were on ground. So they are actually very vulnerable right now, and they need to do something fast. Yeah, otherwise, it's going to be a case of fry pan to fire, I'm afraid.
Okay, welcome back. Many thanks. Thank you very much for your explanation, for joining us on the program. Now, currently as we speak, the inflation rate in Senegal is 2.67%. Yes, that is commendable, because it's, at these days in the globe, there's energy crisis, there's food crisis, there's crisis in relation to housing and all of that. And in fact, when we look at the figure and the data, we could see that Senegal is not doing badly at all. About 0.13% decline in inflation, 0.8% between 2023 and 2024. We could see that they are not doing badly in that sense. But geopolitics, or asking France to remove their troops and their military presence from Senegal without considering the economic benefit or the economic consequences that may accrue to Senegal, will not be a good decision at the end of the day by the political leadership of Senegal. The reason why I'm saying that is because the British Petroleum, as a multinational corporation, is located in Senegal. It also has an outpost in Senegal. Total Energies, a French company, is also there. The Bank of Africa, a multinational. Dangote Cement, a multinational, and other multinationals is situated in Senegal. And one of the reasons why they felt safe to carry out businesses, to bring in foreign direct investment into Senegal, to bring employment opportunities to the massive population over there in Senegal, to build infrastructure, and also import technologies from the West that can aid development, business, and the economic activities in Senegal, is also because of the presence of the French troops, who might be indirectly providing protection to these multinational organizations, multinational enterprise, and multinational companies. Now they are leaving. Are we looking at if extremism can rear up its head again in Senegal, and this might cause these multinational companies to begin to be feeling unsafe in that region or in that climate and want to consider leaving? Do you see this as something that might happen, or does Senegal have a plan in place to mitigate this if it happens?
Okay, so last I checked, the current leader, the current president of that country is a young chap. So last time I checked. So I want to believe that for their sake, they've got a plan, right? Because as I alluded to earlier on, that if they are not careful, their case will go from pan to fire. Now, as much as I'm saying I'm hopeful that being a young person is visionary, is vibrant, just as you have the case of Traore in Burkina Faso, because I see all his energy and he's making a lot of strides, though being military, but he's not acting like he's power drunk and all that, like some of the military leaders we've known that has, probably, ruled in Africa. But then I also fear for these, for this Basiro Diomaye Faye, because this is the same person that was asking Donald Trump for, a pass in his golf course. So it's laughable, really. That looks to me as a weak, that's a weak sign, really. That's a weak sign. It looks like you are going cap in hand. That was a forum where Donald Trump, was embarrassing a sitting president, the president of a sovereign nation. I had to make a post on that. That's a slap on our face. So without digressing further, and all that. But what I'm trying to say is, it is likely that we can see where they are pitching their tents. So it's likely that they're already looking the way of the US. You see what I'm talking about? They are looking the way of the US. And for the US, Donald Trump is so clear. He's all after the money. It's all about the Benjamins for Donald Trump. As long as he can get your resources, because he made it clear, like what happened in Ukraine, signing that minerals deal with the Ukrainian president, which is all he's after. He's just a businessman. That's Donald Trump for you. Yeah, he's a capitalist. So as long as he can get your mineral resources, then of course he can provide you protection, and then that way you don't have anything to worry about from France. But then we've got to be careful, because it is these same resources that actually attracted the colonialists into Africa because of the cookie jar. So it's not a case of you are leaving one evil and then you are going for another evil. Just time yourself. So all I'm saying is, in the short term, that might be a good measure, because nature abhors vacuum. You're vulnerable right now. They need protection. Wherever they can get the protection from, that's it, because they need a deterrent. Because if France can see that they are associated with a world power, then that is enough deterrent for them not to even make further incursions into Senegal, or just retreat finally. But then as a short-term measure, that's fine. But then as a long-term measure, I'm going to sound like a broken record. We need to start looking within. Can we even do without the US? Can we do without the US? Yes, can we do without them? Because these same guys are the ones that are also going to come and pillage our natural resources. And our natural resources should be used to benefit Africans, should be used to benefit Senegalese. So whatever natural resources they have, can they be looking? So they should be looking at standing shoulders tall, facing any of these leaders that, make it like a business deal. And it's got to be fair. I want security. This is what you're going to have in return, but not a case where it's going to be like they're actually exploiting us, which is what has been ongoing in Africa. Exploitation and all that, just taking away our common, patrimony, taking away our natural resources, and what do we have to benefit? So it's going to have economic implications, but of course, again, it's going to be initial shake-up. Their currency is going to shake them. It's going to inflation. There's things are going to get more expensive. But again, if the leader can convince the people to say, we don't want to kick the can down the road, this is a decision we've got to take either now or later. We are taking it now, so there's going to be teething problems. So those economic problems, you need sound economic decisions right now, because these are going to be austere moments for them. They've got to be able to tighten their grips, be ready to suffer, for greater gain. I mean, that's the way it is. So as long as they can have their eyes on the prize and they know that, okay, there's going to be initial turbulence, but we know that, there's light at the end of the tunnel for us. But that's it. And of course, if you're partnering with the West, get as much as you can. Let it be a case where US had to send Dr. Edward Deming to Japan after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bomb, and that helped revolutionize the industrial sector in Japan, and now they are a world power when it comes to manufacturing. So you are not just getting security from the US, but you also want brains. You also want their technology. You also want to, get as much as you can in terms of, intellectual prowess and economic, sound economic policies and institutions, like that is working in the US. So you can use that to accelerate your development and then get to the point where you can become independent, because that should be the natural stride by anybody. You go from being dependent. I mean, as children, we were dependent on our parents to survive. And then we should go from being dependent to a point where we can become independent, to the point where we can now become interdependence. I mean, those are concepts from from Stephen Cowell's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But unfortunately, African countries have not gotten to that point where we are now interdependent. We are now working as equals with other countries in the world. Where I tell you, we are working as equals and we can interdepend on each other. You need this, I need this. We can trade fairly. Right now, these odds are stacked against us. I tell you, the odds are stacked against us. Because talking about military might, if you are not a nuclear, nuclear power in the world of today, I tell you, anything, you are so vulnerable. I mean, look at the case of what's happening in countries like Iran, where you see what, even those are nuclear powers, for example. So we need to go beyond all that, because there's going to, like you said, the question is, there's going to be economic shakeups. There's going to be serious economic effect, but that's where you also need to leverage on what has worked in the West. You see what I'm talking about? So don't just approach them because I can see that's where they are pitching their tent. They're pitching their tent with US. Now they're dissociated from France. So don't just get security. Also be able to get what you need, to help your economic, economic sector. Yeah.
Much. Thank you very much. Sorry, I had to butt in again because I needed to ask you a second question before we move ahead. Now, it looks like severing ties with France. It's either if you sever ties with France and go to join economic ties with the United States or with Britain, it doesn't look like much is going to be different from the kind of relationship that you used to enjoy with France. Because if you look at the leadership of the current the man at the helm of affairs in the United States, Donald Trump, you wouldn't expect anything less. But severing ties with France, it looks like Senegal and some other African countries, talking about Burkina Faso, Niger Republic, Chad, it looks like they're all going towards China and Russia, including Turkey. Do you think, from happenstance, do you think we are putting economic policies at the fore? Senegal is putting economic policies at the fore in their relationship or in the new alliances that they are making with the West for economic development, in education, in foreign direct investment, in building infrastructure, in bringing technology to come and rebuild the economy. Do you think, of course that's what we expect, but do you think the body language of the leadership has suggested that? If not, what will be your advice, even with their new alliance with Russia, apart from providing security cover? Because I think that's what Russia is good in.
All right, good question, Priye. This is a very, very dicey one, because, I mean, as much as I'm listening to myself now and reflecting and saying, oh yeah, it's okay for them short-term, approach, partner with the US or associate yourself with the West, and all that. I mean, as long as you're dissociating from this, particular, former partner, which is France. But then it just dawned on me that this is the same US that is controlling IMF. And what has IMF done to benefit African countries? Let's just think, if not impoverish us any further. So I see the point in the question you're asking, which is, are we not even making our matters worse by even going? So is Senegal not even making their matters worse by going in the direction of US? Because it just simply means they are going to dollarize their economy. Really, So if before they were doing franc, right, CFA franc, now they are going to be doing dollars, and it's further going to, dollarize the economy. So what help is it going to? So you think, for example, the US is going to make you stand, or their desire is to make you independent or stand on your own? No, they want you to continue to depend on them for life. You see what I'm talking about? So that's why I think they need to just manage that. This is where maybe they need to double date, if that's allowed to use, because they need to double date between the US and Russia. They need to play their games well. In fact, if they play their games so well, you could actually use it such that, this is what happens in the case of, so children, that have got, from broken homes, where they can actually do divide and rule. They go to meet their dad, get largesse from their dad, and then also go to meet their mom, also get largesse, and without their dad knowing, they've also gotten the same pocket money from the mom and also getting from the dad. It looks like a bad situation, but I know people that take advantage of those bad situations. That's what countries like Senegal can do right now. Double date between the US and countries like Russia. For me, I'm still comfortable doing business with Russia, because when I look at the, over 54 countries in Africa, which of them is a former Russian colony? Priye, can you think of any country in Africa that is a former Russian colony? There's none, absolutely none. So I am more comfortable doing business with this guy because I know he's not interested in coming to take over my territory. So what exactly is going to be his interest? We need to think. What exactly is? He just needs, power. He just needs relevance. Oh, yeah. So now it's a case of I'm widening my influence. You see what I'm talking about? These guys have become from the US. They are now on my side. So it's a case of, are you on the US's side because they are sworn enemies? So are you on the US's side or are you on my side? So they've got to play their games well. Who has got more to offer? And for me, I think you rather pick tent with Russia, because you can tell that in the long term, they are not likely to have any hidden agenda of coming to take over your territory. Even a China, for example, China, I'm skeptical, because this is a China that they've got a past of taking over some of your national assets if you don't pay your loan, if you don't meet your financial obligations. And these guys, they are imperialists, so the way China is, I think they are still more brutal in terms of doing business compared to Russia. So I'd rather say just align with BRICS, because I like the whole initiative of BRICS, which is an alternative to the dollar. The whole world is so dollarized. So can we look at an alternative? So I think we should rather be looking at that. And beyond that, on the long term, African leaders should sit down for a tete-a-tete and be looking at what they can do to strengthen the continent and go beyond depending on, let it be a case where other countries are coming to seek African, for protection. Yes, let it be the case. Not a case where we are the ones always going out to say, cap in hand, we need your help, we need your help. Let it be a case in the future where we can have an Africa where other countries, smaller countries, are coming to Africa to say, we need your help. We need you to protect us. Can you just, we just need you to be able to front and say, you are on our side. Now we are the ones doing that because we are not, in terms of security might. Which African country can you think of that would say, if push comes to shove and there is world war right now, which African country can you say would actually play a very prominent role? I can't believe country. So it's that bad.
If I may come in. Thank you very much. So if I may come in, how would a reduction or an end to French foreign aid affect Senegal's budget and social programs? Secondly, what are the likely effects on employment if French-owned companies decide to scale down or exit Senegal?
Wow, the future is grim when it comes to that. Like the reality, if you look at, it doesn't matter all the analysis we do in the studio right now. If you look at what's on ground, going by this, if you go by this alone, they should just retrace their steps. Really, they may need to retrace their steps, because if what they've done is just a knee-jerk reaction to say we just want to eject these guys and then we'll think of what to do next. Let's just grab power. Let's eject them and then we'll be thinking. It's like you know what simply they've done. It's like being on a plane and you think your pilot sucks and then you just eject the pilot from the flight. Just tell the pilot jump. Just get off this flight, and then now you're thinking, wait a minute, can I fly the plane? That doesn't add up at all. So I want to believe that for their sake, they've got it all calculated because, in risk management, we talk about taking calculated risk. So for every decision, there's pros and cons. So you've got to look at the fact that, okay, what's going to be the impact? So before even taking that decision, so what's going to be the knock-on effect? So have we even thought about it? So for their sake, they should have thought about that. But if they are only thinking about the instant gratification, the initial pains, then they are likely to retrace their steps, find their way back into the arms of their former lovers, which is France, or find their way into the arms of a deadlier lover, which is maybe even the US, all because they are desperate. You see what I'm talking about? They are desperate. But then if they have a calculated plan, then they can sell the idea to the people, and hopefully they can believe that these times are just troubling times, but then like they say, tough times don't last, but tough people do. So if they can buy into that and, go the route of countries like Singapore, I read the book, from third world to first world. Very impressive, very impressive. So it was a calculated effort. So when they also ejected the British from Singapore, it was done in steps. It was calculated. They didn't leave just instantly. They suffered. They also suffered. Maybe that's a good read for for Faye right now, for Diomaye Faye. You need to take a clue from what what's his name, the Singaporean Lee Kuan Yew, what he did. Really, there were initial pains. People see the Singapore of today and think, how did they evolve? There were initial pains. But like they say, no pain, no gain. That's the slogan in the gym, isn't it? You want to gather muscles, no pain, no gain. That's the way it is. So they...
Very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Tunji Banwu. You have been brilliant. I really, really enjoyed this discussion. We were able to really shed a whole lot of light on this topic. We do hope that we'll also see you again.
Thank you very much, Olumide. Thank you very much, Priye. I hope to see you again. Cheers.
Thank you.
Quite an interesting.
Yes, in fact,
quite an interesting.
For me, that's just it for me. Because if you're bringing in Russia to meet with, if you are establishing ties with Russia, what are the economic projections Mr. Diomaye Faye is putting forth? Whilst I equally understand, the reason why I was looks like I was overflogging that question is that yes, those companies need to exist there.
Yes.
Now we have not even started looking at the mining sector or the mining industry, where we know that most multinational agents, multinational enterprises have been accused of coming to exploit their mineral resources and to cut away the mineral resources and leaving the country underdeveloped because they are starved of industries. They are not building factories and assembling plants there. They're doing that in Europe and moving away some of these countries, they're moving away their precious material resources. So now you have to when you are making alignment with these countries, either with the United States, is it Donald Trump you're going to tell to come site a factory in Senegal? Because Donald Trump is telling you, I'm going to tariff China, India, Brazil, and including Canada and Mexico, except you come to set up your production companies and your production site in the United States, then there will be no tariff.
What about China?
But no, they are equally negotiating and they have the 3 months moratorium. So they are equally still on that. So is it Donald Trump you're going to tell that to? Or fine, maybe he said a Putin. Maybe a Putin will have everything, because at this moment in time, Putin or Russia seem to be selling itself to the world and looking at Africa as one who had gone through lots of ordeal and lots of sufferings in the hands of their former colonizers. And Africa is looking for new lovers, according to Mr. Abao, looking for new lovers so they may run into the hand of Putin, just the way Burkina Faso ran into the hand of Russia. And so are they going to tell the Russians that, look, yes, we're coming not only for security, but we also need you to come site some of your production, some of your businesses, or some of your multinational companies coming from Russia. We needed to come into our country to come set up industrial parks to build up things so that we can have jobs created for our youth. We can have technology transfer to develop. We can have infrastructure laid down around our country by virtue of the participation of your companies and your organizations in our economy. Are they going to do that? What are the things they're going to pay back? In what are they going to pay back to Russia and some other countries? What about China? Is China going to also build some other, maybe like ship, what is it called again? Ports, airports or shipping ports there. The Dangote refine, the Dangote cement actually is also still in Senegal. They need protection. So I do not envy Mr. Diomaye Faye because there's lots of work to do in there, and I really hope that they're going to get it right. But the thing is, economic prosperity for Africa, for Senegal and other former French colonies. I think that will be the way forward.
You know, there was one thing Mr. Bango said, and I think you actually pitched that idea to me, talking about Africans becoming nuclear power.
Yes, no, Nigerians don't want to. Africans, whenever they hear the word nuclear power, whatever, most of the time what they think about is not only evil. You're talking about war. You want us to have nuclear power. Who are we going to fight? Who are we fighting? Look, the Russia, the superpowers of today, the Americans, they were building these things when there was peace.
Yes.
When there was peace. Today, it's the Ukraine war, and Russia is prosecuting that war, and the economy is moving forward, irrespective of the several economic sanctions that the European Union, the United States is meeting, meeting up on China, on Russia. They're still moving on as if nothing is happening. And besides, nuclear power is not only to prosecute war, because you need to start, first of all, electricity. If you have nuclear power for electricity,
yes,
and you can sustain your electricity, you don't have electric failure, your industries will grow. It's also used for health, technology. It's also used for agro-farming, agro-processing. In fact, its uses are numerous. Even in education, we cannot completely, exhaust the benefits of nuclear power. So Africa should not be afraid, including Nigeria. And Nigeria stands at the precipice, because right now, whenever we talk about nuclear power, we say we're not prepared for it. Where is the land for it? We cannot maintain it. We are not able to build it. We can't sustain it. The alliance and the marriage between Burkina Faso and Russia, Nigeria should watch out very well. They might be. Tomorrow, Russia can build a nuclear power or a nuclear site for the purpose of generating constant electricity in Burkina Faso. And that is where it will start. And if any country in Africa attains a level or gets in before Nigeria to attain a nuclear power stage before Nigeria, forget we have lost it. That country can overrun Nigeria and any other African country when it comes to war. And if we're not thinking that way, it's not good.
We
are not preaching war,
yes,
but
it
the
gives
giant
us
of Africa,
a better chance to negotiate, a better chance to sit at the table with our heads high, and all that. If Senegal or if Nigeria has, look at India.
India is a nuclear power. They were having squabbles with Pakistan recently, and though both sides exchanged missiles, but after India exchanged their own missiles and shot a few into Pakistan, what happened? The conflict stopped. They came to the negotiation table, right? Why did they stop? Why did Pakistan stop? Because of the effect, the destructive force with which this particular technology, nuclear technology, came. And they don't want to continue because they are going to suffer more destruction and it's not going to be good. Are they continuing fighting? No. Is India still a nuclear power? Yes. So why can't we have the same? Maybe the United Nations, maybe the United States of America, maybe the IEAE, or maybe the IEA will not want us to go that direction. Fine, but we can start with electricity.
Yes.
And that's where Iran started, where they developed their nuclear power after electricity, and they are moving forward. And they told them, look, don't cross this threshold. If you cross this threshold, you are beginning to develop your uranium to the extent that it could be destructive, and we don't want you to have and they continued, and we saw where it had landed. But you know what? Africa, especially Nigeria, we should start.
All right, so is this the dawn of a new era for Francophone Africa, free from old ties, charting its own path, or just rebranding old power dynamics? We leave you with this. What does real independence look like? And are African nations finally in control of their own defense and diplomacy? I am Olumide Shukura. This has been Just Africa, where the continent speaks for itself. See you next time.
And I'm Oyin Priya Kromara. It's been a fantastic moment with you. Many thanks for watching. Do have yourself a splendid day ahead.